Since the turn of the century, the Yankees have made some highly questionable signings. Is Aaron Judge the newest questionable signing that's going to turn out to be a bust? Or did they do the right thing? I'm James the Greek.
And I'm the DA.
And this is Man Cave Sports. DA, for years, I've been talking about the Aaron Judge situation, whether or not they should have re-signed him and whether or not it's going to be a good signing going forward. If you look at what the Yankees have done since the early 2000s, they have not hit on free agents. They signed Jacoby Ellsbury, complete waste of money. They signed David Arzma, complete waste of money. And now they have Aaron Judge, who so far has been okay, but will he be a complete waste of money down the line? That's what I want to talk about today, and I want to know your thoughts. You played with him. Was Aaron Judge's contract the right move at the time, and would you still do it today?
Was it the right move at the time? Yes, dude. Come on. The guy's coming off of 62 home runs. He had been a great player for the Yankees. Yes, he had some injuries and stuff like that. We all knew that. But he still produced even around the injuries, right? He was still able to go out there, produce around the injuries. For me, I'm sorry. I at the time, he was hitting every ball he saw, and then when he did hit it, it was good. He walked a ton. He didn't strike out a lot. The money was worth it at the time, without a doubt. I don't think there's anyone in baseball that could have said no to the type of season he had and the type of money he was wanting.
I would have, because he was 31 years old. He came off his best years, and you knew that you were going to pay more for it. And in his career, he has played less than 120 games 4 times in his 8-year career. That is terrifying.
You don't get to count COVID. Was that COVID? Did you count COVID?
Fine, I counted COVID.
Yeah, come on. Don't get to count COVID. So 3 times. Less than 120 games. I get that. That's a ton. But did you count last year too?
Yes, of course I counted last year. Why would I?
You can't count last year because that would have been after the contract.
Okay, so in his first 6 years, 2 out of the 6 years, he played less than 120 games.
Yes. Yeah, I'll give you that. The thing about that, none of those injuries were major injuries, right? So some of those injuries were not huge injuries that you're worried about career-wise. Things here and there, things happen. I still think the money was justified. The things he was doing, he had already had some amazing seasons. I mean, you'd already hit 50-plus home runs. You obviously had the 62 home run season. You'd already seen, he'd already been at 40 another year, basically. And to me, at the time, yes, he was a little old. I don't like the 10 years, but that's what it takes to sign him. And you know you're going to get screwed on some of those years. But I felt like you're going to get 5 really solid seasons. 6 solid seasons, and then a couple ends and a couple, a couple where you go, okay, well, when is this contract up type of thing. But at that time, I can't argue with anybody wanting to pay the money because now you look a year later and see the type of money some of these guys are getting. You're going, yeah, that was what it's worth.
That's ridiculous. Look at Miguel Cabrera, who retired last year. How many years has he been completely irrelevant or below the Mendoza line?
That's true. Yeah, a lot.
And that contract destroyed the Detroit Tigers because they couldn't go out and buy anybody else. And the guy that they did buy afterwards, Javi Baez, was a freaking disaster.
You could see that coming, though, from a mile away.
Of course, the guy played on the Mets. Once you're a Met, you're done. How did your career go after your Mets stint?
That was about it.
That was about it. But let's get back to Judge. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at a guy who was 31 years old when he signed that big deal. And I know that I'm going to have to give him 10 years until 41, knowing that the last 4 years are going to be a complete albatross, and you may not be able to afford another player because you're still paying him $30+ million a year? And let me ask you this. Right now, you have the New York Yankees with 3 players who are making $30+ million. You have Garrett Cole, you have Judge, and you have Giancarlo Stanton. How are you going to spend that money next year and get Juan Soto for at least $40 million? How are you going to pull that off if you're the Yankees? You're going to be in luxury tax hell for the next decade if you do it.
Here's the problem. You have a problem with the money you've already guaranteed. But what we have seen and what Juan Soto is bringing to this organization and to the New York Yankees and everybody, how do you not, like, what argument do you possibly have with not signing him outside of money? And that's if George Steinbrenner, the boss, was alive, he'd be screaming at those arguments, telling them to screw off, they'll figure it out.
And I don't care if you believe me or not. And how's this? You're fired.
Because he brings another dynamic to that team, another dynamic to the organization, the city. They love it. Everybody loves it. Everything's going good. I wouldn't be signing him now. I'd wait to sign him at the end of the year if you can, because right now you're just spending high again. Like you're buying high. Let's see. There's no way he can get higher than what he's already doing right now, right? So he can't get better. He can just continue. And I have no doubt that he can continue this throughout the whole season, but he's going to have some slumps at some times, and there's going to be times where other guys are going to have to step up. But do not, whatever you do, don't pay him money now. Wait till the whole season's over. Get your money's worth, and then offer him the money. Like right before he's a free agent. Give him a chance to take the money that you can. I have no way, to me, if they don't offer him that money, I'm looking at this going, man, like, who else are they going to get? What energy else are they going to bring to this thing? It's going to be very hard for me, but I got to get Judge healthy right now. That's what the biggest thing I'm looking at this and saying, if Judge is anywhere near decent and healthy and average, an average Judge is better than 90% of Major League Baseball.
You know, I look at Judge and I'm always reminded of his teammate Giancarlo Stanton. And I actually did a little bit of homework and I looked at their first full 8 years. And it is so close as far as numbers, as far as just everything, with the exception of age, because obviously Judge came into the league at 25, was his first full year, and Stanton was 21. But if you take a look at the WAR, Judge has a 5 games better WAR, which I'm not a big fan of WAR.
Well, let me pull up. You had sent me a stat. Let me pull it up. I haven't looked at this yet. Okay. Here we go.
So if you look at their first 8 years, and I'm going to put this on the screen for the viewers, granted, there's a couple of little outliers there. Obviously, the COVID year, that didn't count towards Giancarlo Stanton's numbers because it was later on. But first 8 years, more games played by a significant amount for Giancarlo Stanton. More plate appearance by a significant amount, almost 800 at-bats. That's more than a year's worth of at-bats. He had more hits, more home runs, more RBIs. And what ended up happening in that second to last year of the 8 was he had 59 home runs, 132 RBIs. Judge had 62 and 131 RBIs in his best year. So both guys have very high peaks, but both guys are injury prone. And yes, I know what you're going to tell me. Oh, he didn't have these major injuries. Guess what? That toe injury that he got last year, that's going to be a problem going forward. He pulled a muscle in his rib cage. You know why you pull muscles in your rib cage? Because you have muscle. Look at me. I never pull any goddamn muscles in my rib cage because I don't have any muscles.
The Stanton injury early on, and that's a thing, was what the Yankees had already seen a major injury with Stanton, some massive knee injuries with Stanton that he was dealing with. So you're signing into a known injured player and major injured player. The Judge toe, who could have ever seen that coming, right? Because if that doesn't happen, just a stubbing of his toe in Dodger Stadium, a freak thing. I think we're looking at this contract and saying it's totally different at this point. We would not even be arguing with this, and that's my problem with it. Is we're looking back after signing and then injuries and going, oh well, you were screwed up. The Yankees got into the contract knowing somebody had already had these injuries. The Judge issue is after you sign the contract and then you have these injuries. I mean, even with the stub toe, he was still the 15th in MVP, right? Even with that, and he carried the team even with the problem, right? He still carried the team. And I'm looking at this and just going, in 22, if you don't have Judge, like, the team's worth nothing. And he did everything that year. The year before was incredible. I still think Judge's issues can get better. We knew at the time Giancarlo was already like regressing and had a knee injuries, and he can't play outfield, right? Okay, now we're gonna put him at DH or first. You're trying to figure that problem out when you sign the guy. Like, the injury's not gonna last, the knee's not gonna last. Giancarlo's like, I'll remember this, and I'll own up to this. At the time, I was like, oh my God, the Yankees. Oh my God, the Yankees. What they just got Giancarlo Stanton. But you also go, ooh, but don't forget, he already had the knee stuff, and he's already had some problems. Judge was just sitting there going, your only issue was, okay, he's a big guy, and big guys usually have just little injuries and like kind of nagging. I still couldn't. I mean, I have a hard time saying he didn't deserve the money. It's an easy conversation to have Judge and Stanton together in one, but man, he deserved that money. And without the tiny toe injury and looking at it after the toe injury, I have a hard time comparing the two.
In the strike-shortened year, they played 60 games, and Judge only played 28. The year before that, he played 102. The year before that, he played 112. Only the year where he won Rookie of the Year did he have 155. So you're telling me he had one full year, and then after the strike-shortened year, which he was not healthy for the entire time, he played a full year with 157, had the monster numbers, and then you gave him that contract? So the vast majority of his career until that point, he was hurt. And he was 31 years old. Why they would give him that contract, I will never know, because if you remember, I was the one saying it's a mistake to give a 31-year-old a 10-year deal, especially a guy who is injury prone.
I don't like your tone of voice.
You're talking to my guy all wrong. It's the wrong tone. Do it again, I'll stab you in the face with a soldering iron.
I don't like your tone of voice. I think you're coming after Judge a little too much because you're a Mets fan, and it's mean. So I'm looking at this, and my big thing, though, is yes, he missed games, but they weren't these major injuries. They weren't these big problems. There were some injuries. Without a doubt, he missed games, and we can argue about the amount of money in years because of those injuries. But it's hard to say, cool, like those are small injuries. He did miss time, but in times when he was healthy, like after that, and he proved that he was healthy after that, he had some monster numbers. I know Stanton had proved afterwards he was not hurt.
Hold on a second. You said after the contract he proved that he was healthy? No, he didn't. Because the year after the contract, he had 106 games. And he missed games at the beginning of this season.
But they weren't the same injury. That's the thing about it. It's a freak injury and hurting your toe. That's something that we have to look at and say, if this is a calf strain again, then you have a reoccurring injury. Then you're injuries. Then you have problems. He ran into the wall making a play. Like, that's a freak thing. That doesn't happen normally in another stadium. That doesn't happen. That's not Giancarlo Stanton just walking and hurting his knee and then hurting it again. And then now we have a problem. That's not, Mike Trout with his back. That's not, Rendon with everything, with life. But the problem here is that it's a lot of little things and they're totally opposite. And it's like running into a wall and hurting your toe. Like, that's not normal. Calf strain, cool, you missed some time in the calf strain on the COVID year. Okay. But he hasn't hurt it again. It's not like these things that are like, it's not like with Griffey. When Griffey's knees started problem, you saw a complete regression in the player. These things with Judges are like, man, like, after signing the deal, the freak injury of a toe, and he still hit 37 bombs. So it's still like he had 106 games and 37 home runs. That's a season, dude. 75 RBIs. Like, some guys hang their hat on that season game. That was the best of my career. And we're going, shit, that's all he did? That 37 home runs in a season, you do that every year and still hit 270 with an injury in 106 games, you should get paid $40 million for that. And guys do. It's just the problem, it's 106 games, and that's what bothers us. The numbers aren't what bothers us. It's the number of games. And I get that. And I do think the toe is going to be an injury, a problem. I think this might be the first injury that's a prolonged injury. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you click the like button. More likes equals more great content for you. And if you haven't, subscribe now